Imagine a car so famous that it became a star in its own right. Yet its real-life story is far messier and more dramatic than anything seen on screen. The Ecto-1, immortalized as the Ghostbusters' iconic vehicle, hides secrets that would shock even the most die-hard fans. Mechanical breakdowns, near-abandonment, and restoration challenges that span the globe. From its surprising original color to bizarre modifications and fan-led rescues, the Ecto-1's journey blurs the line between Hollywood fantasy and real-world chaos. This is a story of obsession, ingenuity, and risk, where a movie car became a legend for reasons no script could fully capture. Rivals united to build a legend. When you look at the Ghostbusters Ecto-1, you're seeing more than a movie car. You're looking at the product of a business rivalry turned alliance. The foundation of this legendary vehicle began in the mid-1950s, when the Wayne Corporation of Indiana, a company that built buses, decided to branch out into new territory. In 1954, Wayne acquired Meteor Motor Car, a respected builder of ambulances and limousines. Just 2 years later, they made another bold move by purchasing one of Meteor's biggest competitors, the A.J. Miller Company, known for crafting hearses and ambulances. Wayne Corporation did something unexpected. Instead of letting the two rivals compete, they merged them under one banner, Miller Meteor. By 1957, the once competing companies were operating as a single, finely tuned manufacturing force in Piqua, Ohio. And only 2 years later, in 1959, that collaboration produced the Cadillac Miller Meteor, the same professional chassis that would one day become the Ghostbusters Ecto-1. What makes this origin story fascinating is how corporate ambition and strategic mergers in the 1950s led to the birth of one of cinema's most recognizable vehicles. The Ecto-1's enormous frame and specialized design weren't just random. They came from a lineage of professional coach builders who once fought for dominance and ended up creating automotive history together. The largest fins in history. One of the Ecto-1's most defining features, aside from the roof rack, is those absolutely massive tail fins. But they aren't just big for a movie car. They are, to this day, the largest tail fins ever put on a production automobile. That's not an opinion. It's a documented record. To appreciate how wild this is, you need to know where they came from. These fins were not custom designed for the ambulance. They were lifted directly from the 1959 Cadillac Eldorado, which was the absolute pinnacle of 1950s jet age styling. That car was a statement of pure automotive excess and optimism, and its rocket ship fins were its crown jewel. This is what makes the Ecto-1's foundation so fascinating. Think about the vehicle's original purpose. It was a Miller Meteor conversion, built to be a somber hearse or a life-saving ambulance. These are functional, serious vehicles. Yet, the designers chose to adorn this professional-grade chassis with the most dramatic, flamboyant styling cues in automotive history. It's this exact clash of a utility vehicle with high-fashion, record-breaking styling that gives the car such a unique and otherworldly personality, even before the Ghostbusters added a single piece of gear. A 1975 Cadillac almost starred. The Ghostbusters Ecto-1 might have looked very different if early drafts of the script had been followed. Originally, the team was supposed to drive a 1975 Cadillac ambulance, a vehicle nearly 2 decades newer than the iconic 1959 Miller Meteor we know today. Imagine the difference. The sleek, high-finned, chrome-laden grandeur of the '59 model would have been replaced by the boxier, less expressive styling of the mid-'70s, a vehicle that reflected a much more subdued era in American car design. By the time the final shooting script was approved, the production team wisely decided on the older 1959 model. This choice gave the Ecto-1 its instantly recognizable personality, combining dramatic visual flair with a slightly antiquated, almost otherworldly charm. But choosing the vintage Cadillac wasn't without a small challenge. The original script mentioned a purchase price of $1,400 for the car, which was far too low for such a rare and specialized vehicle. To keep the story believable, the cost was adjusted in the film to $4,800, giving Ray Stance's acquisition a more realistic feel. This decision highlights how small production choices can shape the legacy of a movie. Selecting the 1959 Cadillac Miller Meteor over a modern alternative didn't just affect aesthetics. It cemented the Ecto-1 as a cinematic icon, a rolling piece of art that perfectly mirrors the Ghostbusters' quirky, adventurous spirit. A heavyweight driving challenge. We see the Ecto-1 skillfully navigating New York City in the movie, but the reality of driving that car was a serious challenge. The Cadillac Miller Meteor base model was an absolute beast, measuring nearly 20 feet in length. It also tipped the scales at around 3 tons, and that's before the team added all the heavy ghost-busting gear to the roof rack. Under that long hood was a 6.3-liter V8 engine, which was good for 320 horsepower. In a normal car, that would be impressive, but for the Ecto-1, all that power was needed just to get the car's massive curb weight moving. This made the vehicle incredibly unwieldy to handle. The car's sheer size and weight meant that quick maneuvers or nimble city driving were out of the question. Imagine trying to parallel park, let alone chase a ghost, in a machine that long and heavy through congested Manhattan streets. The car did have one major redeeming quality, however: a smooth ride. It came equipped from the factory with an air suspension system. This was a sophisticated feature originally designed to provide a gentle, stable journey for patients in an ambulance or for a hearse. For the Ghostbusters, it meant that they had a surprisingly comfortable commute, even if steering the massive land yacht was a constant battle against physics. A dark, supernatural Ectomobile. The brilliant white Ecto-1 we all know was almost the complete opposite. In the earliest concepts for the film, the car was imagined with a much darker, more sinister presence. Co-writer Dan Aykroyd, who penned the initial drafts, described the Ecto-1 as being painted pitch black. This dark vehicle was supposed to be accented by purple and white strobe lights, which would give it an eerie, ethereal glow. But the differences weren't just cosmetic. This original version of the car was intended to have actual supernatural powers of its own, including the ability to dematerialize and even engage in interdimensional travel. It would have been less of a repurposed ambulance and more of a spectral entity. So what stopped this dark phantom car from ever hitting the screen? A simple, practical filmmaking problem. The movie's cinematographer pointed out that the car would be shot frequently at night. A black car driving through dark city streets would be almost completely invisible to the camera. Because of this, the dark paint was scrapped, and the Ecto-1 was given its famous, highly visible white coat. The uncredited genius behind Ecto-1. The Ecto-1 and all its gadgets didn't just appear out of thin air. They were the creation of one man, Stephen Dane. Director Ivan Reitman tapped Dane to design and oversee the development of the Ecto-1 from a bare-bones concept into the vehicle we see on screen. But Dane's job didn't stop with the car. He is the designer responsible for almost the entire Ghostbusters arsenal. He designed the proton pack, the particle thrower, the trap, the gigameter, the slime scooper, and the slime blower. He created the entire physical look of the Ghostbusters technology. What's truly mind-blowing is that he designed all of this, the car and all the gear, within a frantic 2-week period right before shooting started. For defining the look of an entire franchise, you would expect a prominent credit, perhaps vehicle designer or prop designer. Instead, Stephen Dane is listed in the movie's credits only as a hardware consultant. To make matters worse, they even misspelled his name, crediting him as Stephen Dane. It's one of Hollywood's biggest oversights for a designer whose work became a pop culture phenomenon. The 2-week visual bull design. Creating the Ecto-1 and the entire Ghostbusters arsenal was an extraordinary feat of rapid ingenuity. Stephen Dane, credited as a hardware consultant, had only 2 weeks to design the vehicle and all of its iconic props. Rather than starting from scratch, Dane relied on a method he described as visual bull, selecting off-the-shelf parts that looked convincingly technological, regardless of whether they were truly functional. His approach was informed by previous work on films like Blade Runner, where he had scoured airplane wrecking yards for usable components. For Ghostbusters, he filled the Ecto-1 with electronic aviation parts, sourced from both surplus lots and local stores, such as Apex Electronics in Los Angeles. The result was a vehicle that appeared bristling with complex scientific equipment, with gadgets that looked like they belonged to a futuristic laboratory, even if many were creatively repurposed. This method allowed Dane to produce a highly detailed, believable, and visually compelling vehicle under severe time constraints. The roof rack's elaborate array of tubes, tanks, and electronics came from a combination of aviation junk and surplus components, carefully assembled to look both functional and intimidating. The Ecto-1's technological personality, from its flashing gadgets to the intricate roof apparatus, is largely a masterful illusion, a testament to Dane's skill at making ordinary parts appear extraordinary in a very short amount of time. Hand-drawn blueprints of genius. Despite having only 2 weeks to design the Ecto-1 and all its ghost-busting equipment, Stephen Dane produced hand-drawn drafts that were astonishingly precise. Far from rough sketches or rough concepts, his drawings were insanely accurate and detailed, providing a clear roadmap for constructing one of the most complex movie vehicles ever made. These meticulous drafts were essential given the unusual mix of components Dane used. The Ecto-1's roof rack, packed with electronics, aviation parts, strobe lights, and other surplus materials, required exact placement to appear functional and visually convincing. From the Federal Signal Model 19 Propello Ray to the Wellen HRDF 200 strobe units, every element had to align perfectly to create the illusion of a scientific powerhouse on wheels. The precision of Dane's sketches ensured that builders could interpret and implement his designs quickly, despite the tight production schedule. This careful planning is one reason the Ecto-1 still holds up today as a visually intricate and believable prop more than 3 decades later. His hand-drawn blueprints functioned almost like technical schematics, translating a 2-week creative sprint into a tangible, enduring icon of cinema. They reveal the depth of craftsmanship and attention to detail required to make a vehicle that looks both fantastical and mechanically plausible. A real-life traffic hazard. After the movie's massive release in 1984, the studio decided to do some promotion by driving the actual Ecto-1 around the streets of New York City. This wasn't a replica. It was the hero car from the film, complete with its wailing siren and elaborate roof gear. To make the stunt even more effective, the car was frequently driven by one of the Ghostbusters, completely decked out in their signature flight suit. Now, you have to imagine the scene from the perspective of other drivers. It's a normal day in Manhattan. You're navigating the infamously chaotic traffic, and suddenly, you see it. This massive, 20-foot-long, fin-tailed 1959 Cadillac, covered in scientific equipment and logos, with a guy in a Ghostbuster uniform driving it. The public's reaction was apparently too strong. The sight of the car was so stunning, so completely unexpected, that drivers just stopped driving. They were so taken with the iconic vehicle that they reportedly lost control of their own cars, leading to what was described as a slew of accidents. People were literally crashing their cars because they couldn't believe what they were seeing. The rental that became famous. One of the most memorable early scenes in Ghostbusters shows Ray Stantz driving up to the firehouse in a battered black Cadillac, listing off all the repairs the car needed. That vehicle, however, wasn't the primary Ecto-1 used for filming. Sony Pictures had actually rented the car specifically for this scene. What makes this detail fascinating is what happened next. After filming wrapped, the studio realized the car's potential and decided to purchase it outright. Once acquired, the Cadillac was handed over to George Barris, famously known as the King of Customizers, who transformed the vehicle into a fully functional Ecto-1 promotional car. Barris was already legendary for creating Hollywood's most iconic custom vehicles, and his touch gave the pre-Ecto Cadillac a new life as a marketing tool for the film. This promotional car toured events, allowing fans to see the Ecto-1 in person and adding a tangible connection to the movie's world. The car's story didn't end there. In 2010, the promotional Ecto-1, now a collector's item with Barris's customization, went up for auction at Barrett-Jackson in Arizona, where it sold for $80,000. This journey highlights how a vehicle initially meant for a brief one-scene appearance gained its own legacy, bridging the gap between cinematic storytelling and real-world car culture. It's a remarkable example of how even secondary props can achieve lasting fame in Hollywood. Ecto-1 died on bridge. During the filming of Ghostbusters 2, the original Ecto-1 faced a dramatic and very real mechanical crisis. Some of the on-screen scenes showing the car backfiring, smoking, and struggling weren't special effects at all. The vehicle was genuinely on its deathbed. The climax of this automotive ordeal occurred during a shoot on the Brooklyn Bridge, where the car ultimately broke down in the middle of traffic. The resulting gridlock was massive, stretching across the bridge and forcing the New York Police Department to issue a substantial fine to the production for causing such severe congestion. This unscripted event had immediate consequences for the movie. With the original Ecto-1 incapacitated, the production team had to act fast. They converted a second 1959 Miller Meteor into a functional replica, which became known as Ecto-1A, allowing filming to continue without major delays. The real-life mechanical failure added an unexpected layer of drama both on and off-screen, blending the fictional ghost-busting chaos with a genuine logistical nightmare. The incident underscores the challenges of working with vintage vehicles, especially ones that had already undergone extensive modifications. It also demonstrates how a single breakdown can ripple through a production, affecting schedules, safety, and even finances. The Brooklyn Bridge debacle not only cemented the Ecto-1's legendary status on screen, but also created an enduring behind-the-scenes story about perseverance, quick thinking, and the perils of driving a nearly 3-ton movie icon. Fans save a neglected icon. After its celebrated movie career, you would assume the original Ecto-1 would be treated like Hollywood royalty, perhaps put in a museum or carefully preserved. But what actually happened is genuinely shocking. Universal Studios didn't protect its star car. Instead, the Ecto-1 was unceremoniously dumped on a remote studio backlot and simply left there. For years, this priceless piece of cinema history sat exposed to the elements, completely neglected. It began to rust and deteriorate, a sad end for such an iconic vehicle. When the passionate Ghostbusters fanbase learned about the car's condition, they were, understandably, outraged. This wasn't just a small complaint, it was a call to action. Zealous franchise fans organized a massive fan movement. They launched petitions and, showing an incredible level of dedication, ultimately managed to buy the car from the studio themselves. Once they secured ownership, this fan collective poured their own time, money, and passion into a long and painstaking restoration process, bringing the Ecto-1 back from the dead. The car's survival today isn't thanks to the studio that owned it, but to the incredible efforts of the community that loved it. The near-perfect condition it was brought back to is nothing short of amazing. The abused sequel car. We know the original Ecto-1 hero car broke down, forcing the creation of its replacement for Ghostbusters 2, the Ecto-1A. This is the car with the digital announcement boards on the side and the even more complex roof rack. After filming, this Ecto-1A was sent on promotional tours, which eventually included being loaned to Universal Studios in Florida for fans to see up close. This turned out to be a terrible idea. The car was not treated like a priceless piece of movie history. It was treated like a target. During its time on display, a park vehicle actually smashed into it, causing significant damage. But even worse than that one-time accident was the daily abuse it took from tourists. Instead of just admiring the car, many fans saw it as a free souvenir shop. They regularly swiped items from the car, pulling off knobs, stripping pieces from the roof, and grabbing anything else they could pry loose. The car was literally being picked apart, piece by piece, by the very people who were there to celebrate it. This constant theft and the collision damage are a huge reason the car fell into such a state of disrepair. It wasn't just neglected, it was actively vandalized. This abused, stripped-down vehicle was eventually retired and sent to the Sony backlot, where it joined the original Ecto-1, and both were left to deteriorate for years. A surprising original color. We've firmly established the Ecto-1's iconic white and red livery in our minds. It's clean, professional, and looks like a proper emergency vehicle. We also clearly remember the before car that Ray Stantz buys in the film, that ominous, beat-up black Cadillac that needed a laundry list of repairs. But here's a detail that completely changes the story of the hero car's transformation. The actual 1959 Miller Meteor that the production crew acquired to build the main Ecto-1, the one used for most of the filming, was neither black nor white. According to reports, the vehicle they started with was, of all things, a yummy pink. Let that sink in. The foundation for one of the toughest, most recognizable vehicles in movie history was a massive, flamboyant pink ambulance. The account does note that, aside from its shocking color, the car was actually in good shape before the custom work began. This fact makes the Ecto-1's fabrication even more impressive. The crew didn't just add a roof rack and some logos, they had to perform a total aesthetic overhaul. They had to completely change its identity, transforming it from this vibrant, almost comically inappropriate color to the serious, scientific-looking machine we all know. It's a fantastic image, thinking of the prop team starting work on a 21-foot-long, 300-pound bright pink caddy. Ghostbusters almost became reality. Before Ghostbusters became the beloved 1984 classic we know today, the film carried a very different working title, Ghostbusters. While it may seem like a small detail, this early title would have had far-reaching implications for the franchise, especially for its most iconic element, the Ectomobile. The name Ecto-1 is closely tied to the final title, combining ecto from ectoplasm and the numeral 1 to designate the singular, original ghost-busting vehicle. Had the film retained the name Ghostbusters, the car would likely have been rechristened something far more aggressive, like the Ecto Smasher, reflecting a more violent or destructive tone rather than the scientific, exploratory edge that Ghostbusters conveys. This subtle shift in branding illustrates the fluid nature of film production and how small creative decisions can dramatically shape a story's identity. The title change not only impacted the car's name, but also influenced the tone of the team and their mission. Ghostbusters conveys a blend of professionalism, humor, and supernatural intrigue, perfectly aligning with the quirky, repurposed ambulance that became the Ecto-1. Without this adjustment, audiences might have perceived the characters and their vehicle in a much more combative or cartoonish light, rather than the clever, resourceful ghost-fighting team that became a pop culture staple. Ecto-1 restored for game. For years after the release of Ghostbusters 2, the original Ecto-1 spent much of its time abandoned on studio backlots, slowly succumbing to rust and decay. Despite its iconic status, the car remained neglected, a reminder of Hollywood's tendency to overlook even its most famous props. The decision to finally restore the vehicle came not from a desire to preserve cinematic history alone, but as a strategic marketing move tied to the franchise's relaunch in the gaming world. When Sony Pictures began deciding to relaunch Ghostbusters as a major next-gen video game, the studio realized that having the Ecto-1 operational for promotional appearances would be a powerful way to generate excitement. The plan was simple in theory: get the car out on the road to create authentic buzz among fans and media. In practice, the realization of the car's condition was sobering. The Ecto-1 required extensive repairs, including suspension work, shocks, brakes, brake pads, lining, steering box, transmission, and rear-end restoration. The scope of the work revealed just how much the car had deteriorated over the decades. Ultimately, the Ecto-1's mechanical resurrection demonstrates the intersection of cinematic legacy and modern marketing strategy. What was once a neglected relic became a fully functional, show-stopping promotional tool. Its restoration for a video game promotion underscores the enduring power of this vehicle, not just as a movie prop, but as a symbol capable of activating fan enthusiasm and cultural attention across multiple platforms. Global parts scavenger hunt. When Sony finally decided to restore the original Ecto-1 after years of neglect, the restoration team ran into a massive fundamental problem. This isn't like restoring a common Doppler 59 Chevy or a Ford Mustang where you can order parts from a catalog. The 1959 Cadillac Miller Meteor is an extremely rare, limited production, coach-built vehicle. The restoration team admitted that finding the old bits and gadgets was a bit of a challenge, which is a colossal understatement. The difficulty was twofold. First, the car parts themselves are nearly impossible to find. Second, many of the iconic exterior prop pieces weren't factory parts. They were just handmade stuff that the original prop designers had cobbled together from surplus junk. This forced the restorers to become international detectives, collecting parts from all over the world. They were pulling in pieces from everywhere just to make the car whole again. The single most stunning example of this global scavenger hunt? The windshield. The massive curved front glass is unique to the Cadillac commercial chassis. They couldn't find a replacement in North America. According to the restoration team, the replacement windshield for the Ecto-1 had to be sourced and shipped from South Africa. That's how rare this car is. They had to cross continents just to find one essential piece of glass. Brutal post-restoration test. After the painstaking restoration of the Ecto-1, including engine rebuilds, sheet metal replacement, and mechanical overhauls, the restoration team faced a critical challenge, ensuring that the car would be reliable enough to survive future promotional duties. The original Ecto-1 had a documented history of mechanical failures, including dramatic breakdowns during filming, making it essential that the refurbished vehicle be as robust as possible. To address this, the team implemented an intense stress testing protocol. They ran that car for about a day and a half, deliberately pushing it to the limits for literally about 12 hours a day just to try to get it to fail. This grueling process was designed not for casual use, but to expose any weak points that might compromise reliability on the road. The results of this extreme test were immediately useful, as it revealed certain things that did fail. The restoration team could then address these vulnerabilities, reinforcing or repairing parts that might otherwise have caused breakdowns during promotional events. This intentional failure test reflects the level of professional care and dedication involved in reviving the Ecto-1, ensuring that the car could safely and dependably hit the streets. It also highlights the extraordinary lengths required to maintain a nearly 60-year-old vehicle with a complex, customized configuration. By the end of the process, the restored Ecto-1 emerged not only as a visual icon, but also as a fully functional, roadworthy promotional tool, capable of enduring the demands placed upon it. Ecto-1 becomes barn find. In Ghostbusters Afterlife, the iconic Ecto-1 makes a dramatic return, but in a state that reflects both the character-driven story and the car's real-life history. Within the film, the vehicle is discovered in a dusty Oklahoma barn, hidden under a tarp on the remote homestead of the late Egon Spengler. The plot frames this discovery as a moment of awe and nostalgia, as the Spengler family encounters the long-forgotten ghost-busting machine, symbolizing a connection to the past and a revival of the Ghostbusters legacy. The trailer highlights this sequence, allowing viewers to see the Ecto-1 emerge from decades of concealment, a literal cinematic barn find. This story choice resonates deeply with car enthusiasts and Ghostbusters fans alike, as the term barn find evokes images of rare, classic vehicles, abandoned and rediscovered after years of neglect. Remarkably, this narrative mirrors the real-world fate of the original Ecto-1, which, after its cinematic debut, was left to deteriorate on a studio backlot until devoted fans intervened to restore it. By paralleling fiction and reality, the film pays homage to the car's legendary status and the community effort that preserved it. The sequence underscores how the Ecto-1 is more than just a prop. It is a character in its own right, with a storied past, a near loss, and a triumphant return. Conflicting engine specs reported. For a car as famous as the Ecto-1, you would assume we'd know every single bolt and spec. But when you dig into the original car's power plant, the historical details get surprisingly fuzzy. This is actually a common problem when researching rare, low-production, coach-built vehicles from that era. Here's what everyone agrees on. The 1959 Miller Meteor was powered by a massive Cadillac V8 engine, specifically one with a 390 cubic inch displacement. That's a big, powerful motor designed to move a heavy vehicle. However, that's where the consensus ends. Sources about how it was powered vary slightly. When you convert that 390 cubic inch displacement to liters, some reputable sources list it as a 6.3-liter engine, while others confidently claim it's a 6.4-liter. The horsepower figures are just as inconsistent. You'll find reports stating the V8 produced anywhere from 325 GP to 345 GP. This confusion could stem from minor production variations back in 1959, or, more likely, from the fact that the studio used multiple cars over the years, each with a slightly different mechanical history. But in the end, whether it had 325 or 345 horsepower didn't really matter. The car was a 300-pound behemoth before the roof rack. Even with that impressive V8, the Ecto-1 was famously one of the slowest iconic movie or TV cars ever put on film. From its humble beginnings as a yummy pink ambulance to its dramatic breakdown on the Brooklyn Bridge during Ghostbusters 2, the Ecto-1 has a history full of surprises. The car's massive size and weight made it both an unforgettable on-screen presence and a mechanical challenge, while its restoration required sourcing parts from across the globe, including a windshield from South Africa. Fans have played an equally important role in the Ecto-1's legacy, rescuing the original vehicle from decay on a studio backlot and painstakingly restoring it to near-perfect condition. Meanwhile, the sequel's Ecto-1A has remained largely neglected, a reminder of how easily cinematic history can be forgotten. From obscure aesthetic modifications to intense stress tests designed to push the car to failure, the Ecto-1's story blends movie magic, technical challenges, and fan devotion, cementing its place as one of the most iconic and fascinating vehicles in film history.